and welcome to another episode of Diversity Matters. I'm your host, Teresa Palacio Smith, Chief Inclusion Engagement Officer for Home Services of America. Whether you're joining us for the very first time or you're one of our regular viewers, thank you for being part of this Diversity Matters community. One of the things I love most about the series is the opportunity to bring together thought leaders who help us better understand the people and the communities that we serve. And today's conversation is one I've been looking forward to. In real estate, we hear numbers every day, right? We hear about interest rates, inventory, migration patterns, market trends, home ownership statistics. But behind every number is a person. And behind every statistic is a family. And behind every trend is a community with its own unique story. And today's conversation isn't really about data. It's about understanding the people behind the data. And joining me today are two remarkable leaders who are helping organizations, financial institutions across the country do exactly that. Maria Vergara is the founder and CEO of Community Reinvestment Solutions, where she helps real estate and financial institutions build meaningful partnerships with communities through strategic engagement and innovative outreach. Joining her is also Val Buresch, founder and CEO of Polygon Research, a nationally recognized housing and mortgage analytics expert who transforms complex housing data into meaningful business intelligence. Together, they're going to demonstrate how community insight and data can work hand in hand to create really strong outcomes. Maria and Val, thank you for joining me, and welcome to Diversity Matters.
Thank you so much, Teresa.
And one of the things I want to do, Maria, I'm going to start with you because I love to begin with your journey. I've known you now for several years, I think about 10, maybe even 15 years, right? And you have worked in the banking, and I think I met you when you first started at Citibank, way back when. I knew you through NARA because you were very involved with them. Then you went to, did you go to the one of them to Wells, right?
Wells, Fannie Mae,
Exactly. That's
Citi.
where Fannie Mae. That's where I was going to say.
I've been around there.
So you've got some great, but that's great experience that you have behind you. So what inspired you to launch Community Reinvestment Solutions, and what gap are you hoping to fill with this new launch and this new venture?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting us. Thank you for the work that you do with your podcast, bringing innovation leaders, thought leaders to your audience. So that work should be commended as well. So thank you there. And yes, we've known each other a long time. So my daughter, I think, was 6 months old when we first met. She's 22 now. So a long time. Time goes by, right? But I started reinvestment solutions, community reinvestment solutions, because I saw a real gap in helping organizations, as you said, whether they're lenders or realtors or nonprofit or government, really make authentic, effective connections in community. And I'll give you some examples of what I saw in my 25-year career here. There have been organizations I've worked for, big and small, nonprofit, for-profit, met a lot of brilliant people, met, for the most part, organizations that have really had the best interest of community in mind. But they oftentimes fail on execution.
Mm-hmm.
And why is that? They fail because they don't have an integrated approach to it. So you might have a business development officer, a salesperson who's out there in the market, they're facing the community, but if they leave, that relationship goes with them. Or you have data in your organization that perhaps is not broadly used or shared, and many times not shared to inform that community outreach. And that doesn't work. Or let's say you have both. Maybe you're in an organization that has both of those things, and now you go to amplify your message and go to implement a integrated public relations marketing strategy. And oftentimes you're going to have to outsource that. And we know, mortgage in the housing industry, it's not difficult, but it's difficult. And so you're going to have to educate them on all of that. So that's what really prompted me in having this organization, this company with people like Val and Maria and others that are part of my network here of trusted advisors that know this, share that same philosophy, and understand that if it's effective, it's authentic, and if it's authentic, it's effective. So that's really the reason behind it.
And I love the fact that, you understand the industry, you understand all the rules behind the industry, because there's a lot. You're facing the consumer, you're criticized and scrutinized all the time. So making sure that the information that is delivered and that the data that you collect is actually accurate. So I love that and what you're doing. I couldn't agree with you more. There is a lapse in space in the business. So I think you're going to do so
Yes.
well, Maria.
Thank
And
you.
I know that you have enlisted Val, which you've talked about, which complements beautifully because you focus on those relationships and community engagement. But what Val does so beautifully is she really is able to unlock the power of the housing and mortgage data. So tell me a little bit about, what it is that you look beyond the numbers and so that people can truly understand the people and communities those numbers represent. And by the way, unknown to me, because when we were having our first initial conversations, I didn't realize that you also were one of the contributors to the NARP State of Hispanic Homeownership Report, as well as their Hispanic Wealth Project report that they do every year, which is amazing, the information that they actually put out, which helps us with understanding those needed areas to serve. So again, Val, thank you for also joining us today.
Yeah, likewise, Teresa, and thank you for the invitation. And I love working with Maria. We also have known each other for about 20 years, not 22, but approximately 2 decades. And it's amazing how the world is connected and how we are connected in this world. We are never, as people say, islands. We are connected. And what we do impacts each other. We impact each other. We create communities or bring down each other and bring down communities. And that's why I'm so excited about this work and working with Maria. She put it so well. But in my world, it's the world of the mirror, the analytical mirror of what's happening in a community. And I know that, data sometimes gets bad rap and it's never represents that reality perfectly well. But nevertheless, it is a mirror to that reality, and we should all look into data. And data is used by numerous organizations. You just mentioned NAREP. And I think that data is one, and numbers are just one way to begin to understand people and communities, not the only way. Not, you shouldn't only do that. You should engage with people as well, but it is a great way to do that. What I do day in and day out is, you put it very well, I unlock data. What that means is that I find data that describes that reality the best. So when you want to look at data for community analysis and understanding, you should choose your data carefully. And when we talk about this intersection between housing, real estate, and finance, there are two powerhouses of data sets that I work with, and through my work, other people have access to them. The first one is the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act, HMDA, and the second one is the American Community Survey. It is a survey that is done by the U.S. Census Bureau, released at the micro level data. So that's what we do. Everything for us, it's micro data. And that allows us to show both the mortgage market and the trends from mortgage perspective in a community, but also begin to look and try to see what the community is going through in terms of household formation, migration. You mentioned also in your introduction the data that we use. It's the age, home ownership, how people are buying their homes, where they live, multifamily, single family, incomes, where they work, their occupation, and things like that. So my approach to data is, first have this broad sense of the data landscape, and then talk to people who know about the community and to get that context in order to interpret the data.
Well, first of all, it's so impressive. And I went through your website to look at even some of the tools that you kind of have a proprietary on usage on that kind of complements the Honda data that you just spoke about, as well as some of the other surveys that are part of the one universe that you create to help organizations figure out what their best tools are and create programs that can adapt to the needs of today's buyer. So I know that you both created this partnership. Give me an example of how you can come into an organization, Maria, if you don't mind, and work together, seamlessly to help, someone figure out what's the best, program or tool that they should be using based on what you both do. And also your other
Yeah, well,
partner who is not here,
the
right?
the partnership, it works for those reasons that Val explained, the data complementing the strategy, vice versa. One without the other is incomplete. Personally, I think it works well because she complements the skill sets I have, and also vice versa. I ask her lots of questions about the data. I mean, if you think about it, Val, how many HMDA data fields are there?
Oh my goodness. So there are 138 million rows of data if you are looking over the 8 years that I'm looking on, and then 100 columns. Each one has at least three. So it's like multiplied.
Yeah,
It's
it's an infinite
hundreds. Yes.
an infinite amount of outcomes if you look at that data. So it's really important to understand what that organization's objective is, what are their priority markets, and then cut that data into a localized view so that you can really uncover the micro ecosystem, if you will, of your area that you're trying to serve. And then you can, if it's nationally, then you multiply that out. But starting first at the local level, and working together, then we can inform based on that strategy and that research, the outreach. But it's really critical then to bring back the findings from that outreach back to the data and say, did we miss something? Sometimes you do miss it when you actually take it in market and you realize that there was a gap there that was hidden in the numbers. So it's so important to have that synergy together from the onset of your strategy development.
Well, one of the questions that I have, and one of the things that we've seen, and I love what you're doing, honestly, because Maria, I'm not a data person. I mean, I struggle. Like if I see charts, I get dizzy, right? I understand the importance of data and how critical it is, but I'm very similar to you. I'm a people person. So I want to understand the numbers behind what we're talking, anytime that I see something. Um, as small as it can be, as minute as you can get into the details, whenever I go into a city, and this is a question I didn't ask you, but I think it's really important to so people can understand how critical this work is, because today more than ever your work is needed, because there are certain organizations that at one time were able to provide data to us about how women bought, what minorities were buying, if you look at that, but today those are restricted. What that information is supplied is restricted. So you come in at a very opportune time because you're able to provide that data to organizations that need it. But let's say, one thing I always do when I go to a new city, let's say Minneapolis, wherever I'm traveling, I always get an Uber driver or I always get a Lyft driver, right? And the first thing I find out is those usually are immigrants that are here, that are, refugees that are legal, that have their ability to purchase a home. There's a huge community, but I didn't know about it. And if I ask someone in my
Yes.
office, my real estate office, they're like, "Oh yeah, it's a large community," but they're not tapping into it because they're not helping that community get into homes. And so I'm really always surprised, is that information as small as it can be or as large, those demographic trends that may be changing that give opportunity for us to go in and help buyers in those communities be able to, purchase a home, the dream of home ownership, which all of them, whenever I'm with them, they're like, oh, I would love to have a home. I don't own a home. So are
Of
you
course.
able to do that?
I can
Oh,
start.
yes, you can get,
Yeah.
yes, Val, please.
Yes, absolutely. And the reason for that is because not only we have a lot of data now, and Maria asked that question about Hamda, but we also have a way to process it instantly and make it available to anyone for exploration. In terms of immigrant communities, how you can find information about that, it is through the American Community Survey. There is no better source because the American Community Survey, I mean, if you think about it, there are three sources for demographics and housing, actually, home ownership data. It is the Housing and Vacancy Survey. It is the American Housing Survey that is biennial, and then it is the American Community Survey. I love working with the ACS because it is that deep and it can go into understanding immigrant communities. When did they immigrate? Where did they come from? Or what kind of income they have? What kind of needs they have? And you can use this. And my advice is always to use this information with the utmost respect for those communities. It is never, and that's why the US Census is putting it out there, not to discriminate. It is to actually understand the needs of those people and see how you can match them, whether you're a real estate agent or if you're a lender, even, what kind of products can you bring to this community that works as taxi drivers, or they're not W-2, they are entrepreneurs. What kind of products can you do? Are they buying with mortgage or cash? Because for you as a real estate agent, it doesn't really matter. You're helping them with a transaction, but access to finance, we know it's so important for achieving home ownership. But that data is definitely available, and you can get so local to the census tract, to the zip code, to the neighborhood. It just only you have to have curiosity and desire to learn, and the data is going to point you there. But as we are talking here, it's not the end of the story.
Well, I think it's really important because, there are so many products, and also we all abide by fair housing rules and regulations. So that's not a concern. But for me, is really making sure that you really are providing the types of assistance that's going to help that community really become homeowners. And like you said, for a realtor, it doesn't matter whether you're a cash buyer or whether you're a lender, but for a financial institution and also for that individual, establishing credit in the United States, one of the biggest ways that you can also, establish credibility. And sometimes a lot of our immigrant communities don't know that. And so providing the type of training that will help that community understand why it's important to, to put your money in a bank and to not just always pay cash for things. So I think it's really important to, really develop those opportunities where we can. And I love, again, the fact that you can get that nitty gritty in the data, because that's really what's going to help a lot of, these buyers that are currently hidden, which would I consider, right, are hidden buyers. All right, so
Yeah,
here's
can
another.
I
Sure.
just quickly interject something, because you mentioned home buyers or homeowners, but what we have to also, you see, this is the importance of data, is that it allows us to keep an open mind and to learn about those communities rather than make assumptions, because a lot of immigrant communities are also looking for ways to become landlords, to invest in properties. One way
Yes.
to achieve
Huge.
wealth is
Yes.
through real estate. And that's another part of the data that it can provide that kind of an insight. We see, as an example, we see in areas that are majority Black census tract, for example, that there is a lot of interest in investment. Investors are coming in, buying those properties, and bringing up the community to a level where people can become homeowners again. I was on a call yesterday with a client in Albany, and they are trying to crack the nut of lending in majority Black census tracts in Albany. And they're looking at it and seeing home ownership rate is only 25% versus home ownership rate outside of those majority Black census tract is 65%. There is no business, but they using the data, they found out that actually investors are part of the story there, how they can help MBCT areas. And a lot of those investors happen to be minority borrowers and
Oh, wow.
minority.
Yes.
Yes.
And that completely changes that strategy and the outreach and the marketing and public relations when you're going, in that case, shifting from first-time home buyer to actually investment. So very important to understand the data at a micro level.
I think that, again, is so key. And one of the things that I also look at is with the new 21st century bill, community reinvestment continues to evolve alongside technology, changing demographics, and new approaches to community engagement. So, from your perspective, what should realtors and financial institutions and housing leaders be paying attention to as they plan for the future? So if you were going to give advice, or what do they need to be doing? And that can be either one of you.
I'll say three things that come to mind. It's not exclusive to these three things, but I would say demographic change, technology, and trust. And in an age of AI and all the information that's coming at us so quickly and the amount of it, what is making something a rare commodity is that human connection. And so that can, trust is, that's how it's made through that. And demographics. And we're in an environment, a current environment where a lot of organizations are really careful on how they discuss diversity, right? And some organizations are avoiding the conversation altogether. And we have to be smart about this. And demographic shifts are reshaping household formation and the way that customers want to be served. So I think that that's really important. Like, here's an example. We all hear that soundbite all the time about the gap between white homeowners and the homeownership rate between white, black, and Hispanic, non-white. And that's true. And the gap we need as a industry to work better in narrowing that gap. But what's also true is that Hispanic households are the largest driver of homeownership growth rate in the U.S. It accounts for 139% of the overall growth in recent years. So, why is that? We're younger, you have more people in a household. And so it's really important to pay attention to those demographic shifts. And as I said earlier, not avoid that discussion about your diverse consumer base, because that is the future of home ownership.
It really is. And people don't, and you're right, there's so much sensitivity. I have no issues with it because this is what my role is, right? It's really important to understand the different opportunities there are to help people become homeowners. That's the thing that, if my mission were anything, is to create more homeowners in this country versus renters. I think it is the dream that we all have. And if it's not, it needs to be. So I really am always looking at how can we empower more people into homeownership. So again, you do have to pay attention to the demographics, but you also have to pay attention to the cultural nuances that each of these communities represent, because as you said, the data just is data. And each community has a nuance of their personalities. I think the reason, Maria, that more homeowners you're seeing more in the Latino communities than any other, it's because of the fact that we will combine our forces. We'll have cousins and we all, go into one household.
Larger households,
to just get into the home. And then now we've got this house. We have we build a room for my mother-in-law, my sister, everyone's under one roof, and all combining to that, the payment of that property, right? And then as it expands, you buy more. You see that really helping. So understanding each culture is probably so key, which is why I think what you're doing both are really important. Is one of the things I know you did, Maria, when you were at NARUP, is explain, to companies why understanding each market segment and each community was so critical. Now I know we talked, you mentioned AI, right? which is one thing that I always want to know about. How is it, enhancing the community intelligence that you are pulling together? And Val, I know that you've got to have this as part of your strategy when you're pulling information, yet ensuring that that human element, those lived experience really still exists and never get lost.
Yeah, it's a really good question because with artificial intelligence, you're absolutely right. We think a lot about it. We as an organization think of it because it is both an opportunity but also a threat to us because it provides information, right? Provides answers. So we are very much immersed into the AI impact way of thinking. And one thing that just even beyond real estate, a lot is still up in the air when we talk about AI. Many organizations, real estate, housing, banks, IMBs, stores, everybody are busy trying to decide their own context for AI, how much to trust it. Whether they would trust this centralized AI, this consumer-facing AI that we get from OpenAI, from the labs like OpenAI, Anthropic, X, Grok, through Grok, and things like this, or whether it should be distributed AI. Everybody should have their own little model. How much information should we trust it? But when it comes to community intelligence, where I see AI play a role is making that community intelligence much more accessible, in a way democratizing access to insight.
Yes.
And so what it means, it's both again opportunity for all of us, and also requires more from us. So instead of we waiting for someone to tell us what and how to think about the communities, we have to begin to ask those questions and finding answers in the data. We talked about, Maria mentioned, trust is very important, and following the demographic changes. So how can you use the AI, those capabilities, in order to build your understanding of the demographic changes, as well as provide enough insight and guidance to the borrowers and to the consumers in your market, so you gain their trust. I think AI, it's not only a way for companies to start looking back at and learn more about the consumer. We have to realize that the consumer is also using AI as a goggles, as
Right.
spectacles to look at us as the providers of services to them. And this is basically how we think of AI. It's a foundation that or a capability that we have, but we have to root it into something. We call it grounding it. And for us at Polygon Research, it's grounding it in data. So anything that we give or use AI for, it is based on verified and connected data.
And I love that, and you put it so beautifully well. So thank you for sharing the information. One thing that I do want to talk about, because we titled this episode "The Story Behind the Data," and one question that I have, Maria, if every data point represents a person or a family, what's one story the numbers often fail to tell?
Yeah, I think your listeners can have their own stories that they relate to as well. Or this one is, I think about my father, and he, even though this was many years ago when he bought his first home, he immigrant, instinctually knew that a home would lead to better education, better social connections, sending kids to college or whatnot. So honestly, I doubt that if he would now be in this age, I don't think he qualified because what the number said was that he had high DTI. It's not that he had a bad FICO, but he just didn't have a credit history. He didn't have the income and whatnot. So what it doesn't cover what it fails to show is discipline, long-term financial discipline, or a willingness to sacrifice for home ownership, or the need for stability or pride, all of those things. That's why that human connection is so important. And that's why historically too, HUD certified counselors are so effective, because they work with individuals to make them ready. It's not that they're unqualified, it's that people for the most part are just under prepared and uninformed and unsupported. So that's why it's important to, yes, have those algorithms, parameters, but a solution to work with that individual to get them there.
And
Oh,
sometimes the most important story in the data that I see is a little bit what Maria is saying, is the person who is not yet represented in it, the person who is
Right.
working really hard to get into that data.
well, both of y'all, that was so beautifully said. And I honestly believe that, when you get, when you're working with, personally, because I was a realtor and I worked with individuals, and you go to them and they're explaining why it's important for them to get into a home, and they've got small children, and that they're even that small house that they want, just that first starter home, that when you are able to share that with an underwriter who's like just looking at numbers and not realizing the impact that this one purchase is going to have on the life of this family, that's really when it becomes the human element. And that's when you, as a fighter for that person, can make that difference that I think no tech can do. No, nothing can do to say, wait a minute, I believe in her. I believe that she can do it. Let's run the numbers again. Let's find a way. So I think that's really what makes the difference personally. I love this, all that y'all have shared, because I think that it's really insightful and really makes a difference. And Maria, I think you're going to get lots of calls after this to coordinate opportunities. But as we begin wrapping up, I'd love to leave our audience with one final piece of advice. Can you believe we're almost out of time? If you could leave with one piece of advice about making smarter, more informed, or more inclusive business decisions, what would it be?
Maria, do you want to start?
Okay. I would close, get close to the data. Yes, absolutely, especially in this age of AI, but get close to the people. And when you're, evaluating the ROI, look at it a little differently. Community listening sessions and what you collect there, and are you providing that back to your intelligence at your organization? A consistent way of evaluating your partnerships to see if you're both getting what you have agreed to. We have engagements. It's not just the number of people there, but what did they act on when they left? I'd rather have 10 people that acted on something that we provided rather than 100 people that went and didn't do anything. So yes, get close to the data, but get close to the people and make sure that you're measuring the right outcomes.
And I would second that my advice would be similar. Use data to put a spotlight on something, and then bring in the people who know the community and discuss it with them, that finding and solutions for if it is a problem of overcoming that problem. But also, I just want to encourage everybody to bring your thinking hat and curiosity, because we are living in an extraordinary age of information and insight. And I want to encourage everybody, when you do that, be willing to let data and evidence and insight change your mind.
Oh, I think that's so wonderful. And one thing that you both said that I think is really important, number one, the ROI, don't let it just be, something that you look at and not wait, right? Look at the long term versus the short term outcome, because that's really important. And then also the fact that sometimes bringing in the right people means hiring people that understand the culture that may not be within your umbrella of individuals that are currently within your company, or that are able to address that culture or that community. Because I think that's something that is sometimes a missing piece with organizations. They think they can, oh, we know all the day, we know now, let's, no, but you got to find the right people too to serve that community
Right.
very effectively. Thank you again. I love always ending our conversations with a fun rapid fire. And I know that neither of you have this information. So just whatever comes, don't overthink it. First answer that comes to mind. And then I'll start with you, Maria, and then Val. And Val, so one word that describes your leadership style, Maria.
Collaborative.
Love it. Val.
Curiosity.
A book everyone should read. Maria.
um, I'm going to have to pass on one book.
Val.
Fiction or nonfiction?
Yeah.
What
Religious or
book
not
Well,
religious?
I would say a number of books. I think all the classics. I think one book that I read and reread is Seneca, Letters from a Stoic. I love Brother Karamazov. From the nonfiction, I am currently reading a book that is informing a lot about also how I think about the data. It is a book written by Sharon Cornelissen, The Last House on the Block, and it's about gentrification in Detroit. So it's a
Oh,
very
neat.
good read.
That's a great one. Yes.
And a
The
movie.
the color of law. Now that you say that, Val, yeah, that's another good one.
It really is. A movie or documentary that has inspired you. And that's kind of like Val, the book you just said, for me, I don't know if you've ever seen the Last Black Man in San Francisco.
No,
And
I
so
haven't.
that's
I will
very
take note for this one.
that's very
Yes.
it's about gentrification. But a movie or documentary that you think, oh wow, that's really inspiring, and everyone should at least, and either whoever wants to answer this.
Americas. It's a new documentary about nature.
Oh,
It's
nice.
just incredibly touching about the beauty of our natural world and the creation in general, and our space, the Americas, the North and South America.
Is that the one that Tom Hanks produces?
Yes.
Okay, I love it. I've seen
Okay.
it.
Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
good one too.
Yes. And then the last one, Maria, one lesson you wish someone had learned that you had learned earlier in your career.
I would say that you're capable. You're always capable.
Capable of learning, capable of doing anything that you put your mind to it. I
Always
love that.
capable in any
Yes.
situation. Yes.
And Val, last question. The story behind the data is?
It is discovery. I think it is that you discover and remove assumptions. I think that's what the story about the data. It's not about
Yes.
creating one narrative, but really breaking assumptions in order to solve problems. Discovery.
Beautiful. Both of you, thank you so much for sharing your
Thank you.
expertise, your experiences, your passion for helping others better understand the communities. And today's conversation really reminded me that data really helps us recognize patterns and trends, but it's the people who give those numbers meaning. And that's what's important to always think and always remember. Every statistic represents an individual, a couple, a family pursuing the dream of homeownership or the opportunity to expand their portfolio to be able to create generational wealth. Every trend reflects communities that continues to grow or evolve and contribute to the fabric of our nation. Thank you to everyone today that joined us. I appreciate you coming on board to Diversity Matters. If you enjoyed today's conversation, we'll hope you'll share it with a colleague, a friend, or anyone who believes that understanding people is the foundation of great leadership and great service. Be sure to join us for our next episode, which we have one coming up on Women Who Lead on Wednesday, August 12th, and then join us again on the August 26th for another Diversity Matters episode. Until then, remember, every community has a story, every neighborhood has a history, and every data point represents a person, because the data alone doesn't tell the whole story. Understanding people does. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you all next time on Diversity Matters. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.